Welcome back to Make Play Treasure. Today we're reading Popcorn at the Palace by Emily Arnold McCulley. This will be good. Who doesn't like popcorn? In 1837, a devout and enterprising band of pioneers led by the Reverend George Washington Gale founded Galesburg in Illinois. Galesburgers protected themselves from sin on the wild frontier. They lived according to the scriptures and frowned on anything too different, all except Olmsted Ferris. Maisie Ferris took after her open-minded father. Most families in Galesburg had only the Bible in their new parlors, but Olmsted and his wife, Concurrence and Ferris, kept up with the latest books and even a few magazines such as Knickerbocker and Godey's. Their stories about the English royal family intrigued Maisie the most. Reading about things that were different excited Maisie's imagination. The endless, flat, fertile prairie ablaze with flowers excited her father's. He decided to try growing mustard. While it grew, he invented a machine for threshing it. Then he thought he'd try planting canary seed, figuring it could be threshed with the same machine. The Ferris' neighbors raised ordinary corn and hogs. Olmsted's ideas shocked them. As it turned out, no one wanted to buy mustard or canary seed. But this didn't discourage Olmsted. While he kept thinking and tinkering, Maisie made herself a doll house out of wood scraps and doll furniture out of bits of leather. Then she made a doll from a corn husk and named it Victoria. At church, people were stiff with Olmsted and Concurrence Anne. Why don't they plant corn and raise hogs the way they're supposed to? They asked one another. Their children were standoffish with Maisie. What's that dolly called? One girl asked. Victoria, Maisie said. What kind of name is that? It's the name of the Queen of England, Maisie replied. She got married a while back. The Queen of England? Ain't you an American? We don't hold with royalty here. Maisie Ferris, you ought to be ashamed. I just liked the sound, Maisie said. One day, a journalist from England came to town to report on how the pioneers were faring. Maisie overheard him ask why a small field of corn looked different from the rest. She spoke up. Why, that's popcorn. Popcorn? It grows on ears like other corn. You dry the kernels. In a pot over a hot fire, they puff up and turn white. The Englishman said that such a thing was unheard of where he'd come from. Maisie ran to her father. Papa, in England they've never heard of popcorn. I bet you they'd take to it just as we do, if only they knew. Olmsted put on a considering look. That night he announced that he was going to take popcorn to England along with some cattle. It was just the enterprise he'd been looking for. There might be a huge market overseas. He would show the English just how spectacular American prairie products could be. Next spring, Olmsted planted 60 of his best acres in popcorn. The good people of Galesburg could hardly bring themselves to speak civilly to him. It was all out of proportion. Popcorn wasn't real food, and the English had never heard of it. Why would they buy any? The popcorn kernels filled 20 barrels, even more than Olmsted expected. It's Illinois, he crowed, in this rich prairie that grows everything bigger and better. Papa, I want to go with you, Maisie said. It's a business trip, dearie, Olmsted replied. What would I do with you? I want to see the Queen, Maisie said. The Queen of England doesn't take time for folks like us, Maisie said, Olmsted laughing. It was my idea, Papa, and I could be a help to you, Maisie said. Her mother agreed. Olmsted relented. Galesburgers were convinced the devil had gotten into him. He and Maisie took stagecoaches and canal boats to New York, and from there sailed for Dover. The trip lasted 3 weeks. Maisie passed the time discussing books with another interesting Englishman who had just toured America, the author Charles Dickens. In London, Olmsted had no trouble selling his cattle, but when he mentioned popcorn, he got blank looks. They don't know the excellence of our American product, he said to Maisie. Maisie kept quiet for the first few days. Then she said, Papa, it's time to see the Queen. Maisie, you know we can't do that, her father said. Take me to the palace, please, Maisie begged. Olmsted sighed and took her to Buckingham Palace. They watched the changing of the guard. Maisie wanted to wait to see the Queen. A policeman told them the Queen was out of town. Olmsted tried to comfort Maisie, but he had popcorn on his mind. Finally, the manager of an entertainment parlor on Regent Street agreed to let Olmsted do a public demonstration of popcorn. Posters were put up and a small crowd gathered. Olmsted showed a handful of dried up little popcorn kernels. A fire was lighted and Maisie tossed the kernels into a pot. The results were amazing. "It's corn that turns to snow," someone cried. Served up with butter and salt, popcorn delighted the crowd even more. Olmsted and Maisie had to repeat their performance many times. Word of the exploding food spread all over London. This cheered Maisie up, but she wouldn't let go of her wish. When was the Queen coming home? As Olmsted and Maisie rested in their room, there was a knock on the door. The hotel manager was very agitated. "I am to request a private showing, sir," he said. "His Majesty the Prince Consort has heard of your popcorn and wishes to see it. You are to be presented to the palace 3 days hence." "Whoopee!" shouted Olmsted. "A man after mine own heart." Maisie was pale. "The prince?" she whispered. "Prince Albert? He's Queen Victoria's husband." The hotel manager reappeared. "Mr. Ferris, sir, there is an etiquette to being presented at court. A lady-in-waiting to the Queen is here to teach it to you." "Shucks," said Olmsted. The lady-in-waiting coached Maisie and Olmsted for the next 2 days on how to approach royalty, how to bow, how to speak when spoken to, and what to say. They were never to ask a direct question of the royal couple, or to turn their backs to them. Maisie curtsied over and over until her head swam. The great day arrived. A carriage came and drove them to Windsor. Maisie and her father waited. Soon a page announced that the Queen and her consort would receive them. Maisie's heart flipped. When the door was flung open, Olmsted, in his eagerness, forgot what he had practiced. He shot toward the royal couple, smiling broadly. "Howdy-do!" he roared, but fortunately he stopped short of shaking hands. Queen Victoria looked alarmed, but the Prince Consort managed to smile. "Pleased to meet you," Olmsted went on. "This is my girl, Maisie." Maisie blushed crimson. Olmsted showed his kernels, and Maisie dropped them into a hot pot provided by a footman. The popping corn battered the lid. The Queen clapped like a child. After the first batch, she and Albert asked to see the corn turn to snow again. "This is peculiarly American," Prince Albert observed. "Right you are," said Olmsted. "Greatest nation on earth." "How might we grow it here?" asked Albert politely. "You could send for a few acres of Illinois soil," said Olmsted. "Ahem," said Prince Albert. The Queen said she would like to present Olmsted with a gift. "Oh, I can't accept any gift," he said. So the Queen beckoned to Maisie, who was drinking in the sight of royalty. "What is that you are holding?" the Queen asked. "My doll, Mum," said Maisie. "And what is she called?" asked the Queen. "Victoria, Mum," said Maisie. "Indeed," the Queen said. "I will give you something to take home." The lady-in-waiting handed Maisie a French wax doll with real hair and a velvet and lace gown. Maisie gasped. It was more beautiful by far than any she'd seen in Godey's or Knickerbocker. Such a doll was unknown on the prairie. "Oh, thank you, Mum," she said. "This is my dream come true, and more." The visit concluded with the prince's order for several barrels of popcorn and some Illinois soil. Maisie took the doll home to Galesburg. It was a sensation. Now everyone wanted to hear about the Queen. Other people followed Olmsted's example and dreamed up new enterprises. They couldn't stand in the way of progress, could they? Maisie treasured Victoria, too, all her life, as did her children and theirs. Popcorn became a favorite snack of millions. But it never caught on in England. The end. Hope you enjoyed this book. And remember to like and subscribe so you can keep up with all of our reading events and activities. Catch you next time on Make Play Treasure. Bye!